I'm back. So let's start with the unit trusts. So to understand what we call unit trusts, you have to understand something that is extremely important. You have to understand it this way. These are licensed fund managers. Okay, it starts with a licensed fund manager. Fund manager is an investment, let's call it an investment company that is fully licensed by Capital Markets Authority to invest money, to manage, actually not, let's call it manage investment portfolios on behalf of different entities and individuals, right? So I, Kakande, let's assume I have a company, I have the expertise, I go through a rigorous, vigorous assessment, and Capital Markets Authority is the only entity in Uganda actually that has the mandate to license an investment company to act as a fund manager. Then why am I starting from a fund management? Because fund managers can open up different funds. Let me use them funds. Some can focus so much on corporate investments. Others, what we come to know as unit trusts, are what we call as the collective investment schemes, right? For few people. And so a fund manager gets a license from Capital Markets Authority. Then they get a license to open up a particular unit trust that that meets certain parameters. We are going to go through some of them, that then they can manage on behalf of people. Then you and I can invest in that unit trusts. And as you have seen, my money in that unit trusts are the units. They manage that collectively, the collective investments, for it to deploy it in whatever they deploy it in. It's not a new concept in that it's in Uganda, it's everywhere. The money market funds, they are in Kenya, they are in the US, everywhere. The concept here is that individually, there are people who do not understand how to do and invest money. Or they have little capital for it to be invested in certain sectors. But too, when you get one big company that is managing investments on behalf of so many people, there is synergies that comes there, right? So, like I said, in Uganda, it's only Capital Markets Authority that licenses unit fund managers. I'm going to start with fund managers, and I link it into unit trusts. The biggest fund manager in Uganda is Old Mutual. It's the biggest. As at March 2026, as you can see on the report, it had 3.8 trillion of collective investment assets. Old Mutual, the biggest. The second biggest is ICEA, Lion. It had almost 725 billion. Now, these are billions in UGX, right? At least Old Mutual, it has 3.8 trillion. That's already a $1 billion plus for the people who want, for those of you who are in the US who would want to be like, oh, what's the equivalent of that? Then the third one is Sanlam. Actually, the third biggest is SBG right now. It has 689 billion. SBG started recently. It was actually launched in 2024, but it has grown exponentially, that it has overtaken to become the third biggest fund manager, overtaking Sanlam Investments, right? And at this pace, I believe it will overtake ICEA in the next 6 months. Then we have Sanlam Investments with 530 billion. We have Britam. Britam is lagging behind. It was one of the biggest at 239 billion. Then we have Cornerstone. Cornerstone started in December 2024. And it has grown to over 100 billion, right? Then we have Zeno. And then we have Gen Africa. And right now we have also Kura Asset Managers. It's the new one. Now, why am I starting from this angle for you to see this? That if you are to invest in a unit trust, these are the only, at least as of today, the only licensed fund managers to manage unit trusts. And they are managing close to 70 trillion Ugandan shillings, or over $1.7 billion. So what that means is, the three of you, or four people, if you each gets 100,000 UGX, and all of you take it to Old Mutual, or one of you takes it to Sanlam, another one to Britam, all those, what they do is, because they are licensed and they meet the criteria that requires them to be licensed, then that's why it becomes extremely important. Then they deploy the money on your behalf. They invest it on your behalf. They have certain compliance, they have to do it. And why am I starting from that level of compliance and requirements? It's because it's important to understand that you're not giving the money to every Tom, Dick, and Jerry. There are a few people in Uganda who recently lost a lot of money in a platform called Heart 8. These platforms that promise 50% profit in a year whatsoever. No one can tell you whether they are licensed or not, right? At least you know. Any of these 9 fund managers, Old Mutual, ICES, Sanlam, Britam, SBG, Zeno, Gen Africa, Cornerstone, and Kura asset managers, the new one, they are all licensed. And that's the benefit of it. Then the question becomes, where do they invest in? What, if I give them money, are they going to go and do coffee? Are they going to go and what do they do? So, as you can see, majority of them, they invest in treasury bonds and treasury bills, majority of the money. You can see 66% of the money is in long-term treasury bonds and 10% is in treasury bills. That alone is over 76%. We shall talk about treasury bills and treasury bonds later, but I wanted first you to understand this picture. Then the other 15% is in fixed deposits. Fixed deposits is literally them giving money to the bank to earn something, but they can easily access that money quickly. But also we know fixed deposits is also somehow somewhere ends up in the treasury bonds. So I always say 80% of the money you give to a fund manager under a unit trust ends up in a treasury bond and a treasury bill. The other 7.7% is in cash, or what we call cash and cash equivalent. Now that's important. When we talk about investments, and this is the point that I'm going now to stress about unit trusts, the biggest benefits of a unit trust is actually the ability for you to access your money whenever you want. Any day, anytime. We shall do a comparative with the treasury bonds later, but let's use the normal investment products. When you buy land as an investment, for you to access that money in land, you have to sell that land. If you put money in a business and as an investor, that means you're not the one running the business. The other person must give you a reconciliation and pay your dividend. If you have an emergency, you might even end up selling land cheaply. The unit trusts, they give you 100% assurance that any day you need your money, majority of them have now a turnaround time of 24 hours. 24 hours, you can get your money back. But to some, to the great extent, you can even get that money in one single day. If you put in your application for withdrawal at 10 a.m., by 1 p.m. or 2 p.m., that money should be on your account. That's why they keep this money in cash and cash equivalent, in near cash term, that if the three of you, all of you invest in one unit trust, after a year, one of you wants the money, they tap on the cash equivalent without impacting their investment portfolio. So that's why they keep some of the cash. It's actually the biggest benefit of a unit trust is that ability to have the liquidity when you want. I always these days I tell people, if you do have a bank account I'm going to talk about the return in a minute. If you do have a bank account, the way we taught people, not we, they so much financial knowledge and financial literacy crusaded for every single person to open up a bank account in Uganda. Should be the same effort we should crusade for each and every single person to open up a unit trust. Why? They are the new bank accounts. If you have money on a bank right now, it's earning what? 1 to 2%? Majority of these unit trusts, fund managers, are offering in the north of 12% return every single year. That every single year, your 1 million is going to earn at a bare minimum 120,000 UGX after everything, net. Now that is way much better than keeping that money in a unit trust, in a bank account that is going to earn nothing, to the extent they are going to even charge you. And for you people who are in the diaspora, it gets worse. You keep sending money back home. After 2 years, you go back home and then you do one single purchase. Perfect. Now, instead of leaving that money sitting on a bank account where it earns nothing, put it in a unit trust. After 2 years, when you go back and you have now to put on apartments, or God knows what you want to invest in or buy land, you are using the money plus the interest that it would have earned. So it has made some good money. One of the key driving force for some of the unit trusts, especially like, for example, Cornerstone, SBG, in the last 1 year, they have been giving in the north of 13%, 14% return net every single year. Every single year. Annualized return. That's competitive enough and it's high enough. Sanlam has managed to average 13% the last 3 years. Not easy feat. Britam the same. Zeno is doing an incredible job. Old Mutual has been in business for close to 10 plus years. They have never given a return below 10%. Never. So the fact that, one, the return is competitive is double digit. 2, you have the ability to access your money whenever you want. And that's extremely important. You can access your money whenever, anytime you want your money, you can access it. But 3, these are licensed fund managers. You are not worried that tomorrow you're going to wake up and your money is gone. That alone gives you the assurance that I should invest in a unit trust. You can invest in a unit trust for emergencies, or you can make it your major investment. We shall talk about treasury bonds in a minute. But at least you know, boom, that is critical. Now, that's the unit trust. That's the fund manager.